Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is very difficult task for me to summarize what we have learned and what the lesson that we can learn from many speakers in this morning and this afternoon. I would like to talk first because after that Kelly will follow add more information on this because I think he has a very good memory rather than me. I think what we have learned and about in the presentation and discussion in this morning and this afternoon, one of the most important things I think that the importance of the SME and how we can improve the competitiveness of the SME in Asia, especially for the latecoming like Laos. And second thing is about the competition policy. That is very important issue and important factor to promote the SME development. And it's not just only in the Asia, but including Laos. I think that we need to improve and implement that policy as soon as possible. And another thing that is adding with the competition policy is about the loan of the regular loan and regulation to improve the SME or private sector development. I think this is very important. That we have learned that that this is, I think, is very good initiative and very good program to promote the SME development. And so we have learned and listened to the experience, the good practice from the Australia and the WeChat Cambodia expert share the experience about the LIA in Laos, and also we have the Laos expert also discuss about how we can implement the LIA in Laos. I think that all of this progress, I think this is very important for development the private sector in Laos. I think that this is very, very good discussion.
Yes, I agree with that. A lot of information has been shared today on Indian policy and SMEs and regulatory reform. And I think I pick up sort of three main items that I think I remember from today's sessions. I'm much older than you, so my memory is actually is fading faster than yours, I think. But there are three areas that I think are really useful to think about going forward. One, of course, on SME development. And we do look at the figures that Charles, Michael presented, or one of them anyway, was that there's 99 or 98% of all firms are SMEs or micro enterprises. And there are countries that have been successful in getting those SMEs on production networks, etc. So how do you do that? How does Laos do that? And what kind of interventions can the government adopt? So I think there are, for me, there's about 4 or 5 things that resonate. First of all, I think for a country, education is probably one of the most important. And that means primary education, high school education, and also, of course, post-high school education. That can be university, but also technical and vocational education, TVET. I think it's fundamentally important to have young Lao people develop those skills that are going to be useful for the labour market and useful for business. So I think it's very important that the government invests heavily in education. The other, why? Because then they can become much more entrepreneurial. the interesting things that came out also was technology is also important for SMEs, whether it's Laos or in other countries, because we are in a global marketplace. And an SME no longer needs to just think about competing with the SME in the same location, but we're actually competing with SMEs in other countries. So technology is important. The question is how do you get access, how do you help SMEs to get access to the technology? Governments can do this through a number of ways, and I'd also like to share some of the things we're doing in Cambodia under our SME program there. Governments can do it through the tax system by providing firms with tax incentives to do R&D, research and development, or accelerated depreciation allowances for equipment, and that can embody technology. What we're doing in Cambodia, we've set up what we call a technology development fund, and we're focusing mainly on SMEs in food processing sector. And it's also linked to them improving their standards, product standards, but also management, food management safety standards. For example, becoming ISO accredited, and it's something that Charles talked about, SMEs meeting international standards. We have a project in Cambodia where we're holding the Standards Institution and the laboratories to be able to provide first-class services to SMEs. On the other hand, we've launched a technology development fund where SMEs apply for grants. So we're not doing on-lending, we're doing grants, matching grants, and we'll pay up to 50% of their business proposal. And it's for them to improve their food safety standards in the firm. We have found this being a particularly useful way of helping firms, SMEs, get access to technology. We don't do the training, we don't help them identify technology, they have to do that, but we'll help with the funding, or partial funding of that. And it's a small fund, it's just a little bit under $1 million. It'll be completed, we started last year, end of last year, we'll probably finish that fund by halfway through next year. So it's been very successful. And the SMEs are doing a number of things. An ice cream, a small SME ice cream producer, she's going to buy imported machinery that helps to produce good quality ice cream. Another one is going to try to get themselves internationally accredited for ISO, so that they meet international standards. So I think that's one way of thinking about it well. Not so much about trying to train SMEs to do technology, but how can they get funding for it. And I think the other issue is on standards. How do you help SMEs to improve their standards? Again, it's something that we can't train development partners, cannot train SMEs to do. I'm not sure government can do either. So you've got to be able to help them be able to get access to those kind of services. I was also found an interesting, one of the other interesting points that came out this morning, again from Charles' presentation, was foreign investment in SMEs. We often think about, particularly investment laws usually have a minimum investment level. I think in Laos it's $100,000. Other countries have a little bit higher, and it's designed to help protect SMEs in the local market. What we find from the survey of 9 countries is that those SMEs that are more likely to get linked up into international production networks are those that have some foreign investment. So I would share. So that was quite a new finding for me, and I think a very interesting one. And perhaps something that also Laos might want to look at if it does review its investment promotion law. Is there some way of looking at that minimum equity requirement? I know it's often politically sensitive, but it might be something worthwhile to look at if they're going to do a RIA on that investment promotion law. Just 2 other items that I thought that came out was interesting was, of course, on RIA. That trying to cut back on regulations and licenses may not always work if you don't have that institutional architecture for ministries to be able to do have the capacity and systems to do regulatory review. Hence, RIA becomes important. And that RIA, to be successful, there needs to be that central office that helps to sort of champion it over the longer term. So I think that was two important points. I think Sonny mentioned in Australia, they've got RIA, they've got the central office, but they also have a red tape reduction program, both at the federal government, but also the state of Victoria. And what they've done there in the state of Victoria is that they've said to all the line ministries, tell us how much of your licenses and regulations you want to cut back on, give us your timetable, and if you meet that timetable, the Treasury, the Ministry of Finance, will reward the line ministries with extra budget support. And I think that's also been quite successful in the state of Victoria. So you can't really tell line ministries to cut back on regulations. You've got to provide incentives for them to do it. The Australian approach has been to provide additional budget increases to the government, to the line ministries. So there were sort of 3 points that came out from the RIA. The last one on competition policy. These were points that I said. And I think that a competition law is important, but a country like Laos should also think about a national competition policy. Again, continuing reforms on trade policy, continuing deregulation, looking at ways to improve competitiveness in procurement if there are issues there. That is a major chunk of GDP. And moving towards a competition law. Clearly a competition law is pro-SME. We see in the Australian experience, SMEs have increased even after a competition law. But if Laos is going to move towards a competition law, there are a lot of lessons learned in other countries. Indonesia and Thailand are two examples of they may want to look at to bring out the best practices and that would be suitable for Laos. They were sort of the three main lessons that I learned from today. Not a bad memory, yeah?
Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Pupin Kiopilong and Dr. Kelly Bird for very nice talks. Ladies and gentlemen, our today's conference has come to